Thank you so much. And now I have the wonderful opportunity to invite up to the podium our own beloved Dennis Soares.
I dare not stand all the way. Good morning, everybody. I'm so looking forward to this talk. If you take notes, please take notes, because you're going to want to take notes on this. The topic this morning is creativity, and it's saying yes to the capital yes. Before I get into that, I want to go back in history a little bit. There was a man that lived several centuries ago named Leonardo da Vinci. I'm sure you all know the name. There have been books about him. There were recently a few movies about him starring Tom Hanks and other people. Leonardo was kind of an amazing person. He created and created and created and created, and he wrote everything down. And many of the things that he created are actually in existence today. For example, the modern tank, he designed that. Airplanes, he designed that. And a whole host of other things. He cared not what people thought about his creations. And that's one fundamental thing to write down. Don't bother caring about what other people care about your creations, because you don't know where that creation is going to lead to. Leonardo had I would say, the joy of knowing in his own life that he was actually appreciated. That isn't true of every person that does creative endeavors. Do you know what I mean? In the 19th century lived a man named Vincent van Gogh. Actually, his name was pronounced Vincent van Gogh, but I don't like it that way, so I'm going to say Van Gogh. Anyways, Vincent was a very interesting person. Yeah, he may have been mentally disturbed, but he was one of the most prolific artists to ever live. He produced 800 paintings over a 10-year period. And one of those paintings really recently sold for over $100 million. If you took all his paintings together, he'd probably be a multi-billionaire today. Of course, that wouldn't have helped Vincent, because money isn't what makes you happy, is it? His painting made him happy. And it is said that during the course of his entire lifetime, he only sold a few paintings for food. That was it. Interesting story about Vincent is, of course, you all know he committed suicide. He shot himself in the chest. He lingered for 30 hours before he died. His brother, who was younger, loved him so much that within 6 months he died. And he requested that he be buried next to his brother Vincent. And that's where they are today, in a very simple grave. But the point about Vincent was people did not understand what he was creating at the time. He was creating something that was out of the box. Have you ever created something out of the box and people laughed at you? I have. Okay. So he was creating stuff that was out of the box, that was not understood by the common person looking at art. And therefore he couldn't sell it, and nobody else could either. The painting Starry, Starry Night, there's also a song named that, is absolutely awesome. And yet people in his lifetime did not understand it. You see this wall behind me here? Somebody had to think up all this stuff. I know who that somebody was. He's not with this church any longer. But he had to go through a mathematical process to think up how we're going to lay all these tiles out. And then he had to have somebody agree, Reverend Tagg, and somebody help all the other people that did help. Their creativity stands or will stand long before they've already passed. So creativity is something that endures. If you study electronics at all, and I have a degree in it, you will know that terms like voltage, amps, ohms, they're all named after people that lived 100, 150 years ago. They were the ones that put those terms together and made them make sense. So that actually is the prelude to my talk. I haven't even looked at my talk yet. Now we actually get into why I brought all that up. So real creativity is an act of self-expression. It's not a product of performance. Your life, your palette, what you draw with, your dreams and desires are the medium. We are in the laboratory of the divine every single day of our lives, whether we realize it or not. And we get to create. Now, some of you may wake up and say, yeah, I don't really feel like creating today. Just kind of hang out and, I'm not really feeling like it. I can tell you quite honestly, I've created 147 albums. I have never felt like getting up and creating those things. I have had to tell myself after breakfast, are you going to go in there and work on this, or are you going to hang out and do nothing? Your choice, There's nothing wrong with doing nothing, by the way. You can choose to do nothing. But I would say to you that satisfaction in life comes from self-expression. And self-expression is the root of creativity. And without that, you're not going to experience a lot of creativity, which is why people that are living in dictatorial countries, Russia, for example, they don't have the opportunity to express. I would be arrested in Russia if I said the things I want to say. I'd be arrested, no doubt about it. They don't have that liberty to be creative. Just my music alone would get me arrested because I talk about things that are socially or unjust, and I speak about it in very vocal terms. So, some of us appear to be more creative than others. And creativity, as I said before, is strongly connected to self-expression. I want to share with you about 40 years ago, in 1980, I did a course, very intense course called Self-Expression. You won't believe what happened in this course. So I did the course thinking, well, if I do it, I will be able to self-express even more. Speak in front of people, do my art, sing in front of people, all that. And that's what's going to happen in this course. Wrong. After about 5 or 6 weeks of not only me standing up and say, what the hell's wrong with this course? I paid good money for it. What's going on? I began to realize that I wasn't getting self-expression. You know what I was getting? All my blocks to self-expression. Because that was what was in the way of having self-expression. I wouldn't be talking to a group like this had I not done a course 40 years ago that told me, you know what, it's okay to stand up in front of people and even screw up, and it doesn't make you a screw-up. So I did this course, and by the 10th week, I was absolutely pissed, and so are a lot of other people. Why did we go through this torturous process for 10 weeks? Well, the course was designed to have us get how many obstacles we have to self-expression. In other words, how many obstacles we have to actually ever experiencing real creativity. So this is what we found out during that course. There are common themes that everyone shared. Not enough time, not enough money, fear of taking something on that I might fail at, not enough education, I'm just not smart enough. What will people think of my creative ideas? What will their reaction be to it? fear of being in front of people. Those were like the most common things that came out of that course that everybody universally experienced. We could all put them under one umbrella, fear, but really they were broken down into 4 or 5 different categories. And that was the block, that was the hindrance to self-expression, that was the hindrance to creativity. In 1980, I had released 4 musical projects. Between 1980 and 2020, 143. Something happened, okay? And what happened was I stopped caring about how people reviewed my stuff or didn't review my stuff or liked me or liked my music or didn't like me or didn't like my music. Understand? That was my point of view. And coming from that point of view, I found out there were a lot more people that actually liked it than didn't like it. In fact, globally, we have 2.5 million streams of our music 2 days ago. All right? And we don't do hip-hop, rap, or reggae. What can I say? There is a market in Europe and other places for the kind of music we do. It may not be in the US, but there is a market. So every day I meet people with these kinds of roadblocks. They wonder why they can't be creative. You don't need to look any farther than these things I just mentioned, the roadblocks, all right? So here is the plain truth, and this is from a quote from Ernest Holmes. There is an irresistible, universal, and divine urge within each of us to be happy, to be whole, and to express the fullness of life. That's the definition of creativity. If you're not doing that, very hard to be happy and be whole. The latent divinity within us stirs our imagination and proclaims itself through every creative endeavor we are involved in. It has produced sages, saints, saviors, and we will, when permitted, create a whole new world in which war and poverty and sickness and famine will have disappeared. Now, how did Ernest know that 50 years ago? I have no idea, but I'm going to tell you quite literally, he was a very creative being his whole life. He thought outside the box. So here's some ideas about creativity. Creativity doesn't wait for the perfect moment. It fashions its own perfect moment. Everything you can imagine, I love this one, everything you can imagine is real. Pablo Picasso said that. Creativity is not just connecting things. When you ask creative people how did they do something, they feel a little guilty because they didn't really do it. They just saw something, and it seemed obvious to them after a while. I feel guilty about my instrumental slack key albums. I have 11 now. I feel guilty because what I do is I sit down, I think of a little chord progression I want, and then I create a whole song off of that. And my wife looks at me, you're kidding, you're done in an hour? What did you do in there? Okay, but that is so liberating for me. You understand? I don't have any blocks on my creativity. I don't have any people telling me, well, that's really not Pono, that's not slack key, that's, I don't care. All right, what it is something that gets used on television spots, true. Yoga groups, true. They ask for it. All right? So creativity for me, when it's spontaneous, is absolutely the most fun. I never know how something is going to turn out. You can't wait for inspiration. You have to go over to it with a club Club it on the head. Jack London said that. Imagination is the beginning of creation. You imagine what you desire, and you will, what? Hold on. Imagination is the beginning of creation. You imagine what you desire, you will then imagine, and at last you will create that. George Bernard Shaw. If you want creative workers in your business, give them enough time to play. You know, there are some companies that have figured this out, like Google. They've figured that out. It also helps them pay them $30 an hour like they're negotiating at Amazon right now, okay? You can't use up creativity. I'll say that again. You can't use it up. It doesn't have a finite amount to it. The more you use, guess what? The more you have. Who said that? Maya Angelou. So saying yes to the yes, we agree to partner with God. We can partner with God for joy, peace, and wholeness. Our great gift, however, is saying yes to our imagining and creating our own lives. I'm often asked by people, well, how do you start off making a song? I said, well, you know, I can do it 3 or 4 different ways. But one of my favorite ways now is to sit in the living room while the TV is on and write a bunch of lyrics. And then tell my wife, I'm leaving, honey, for a while. I'm going to create a song. And go in the studio, turn my little pocket recorder on, and within a half an hour have a melody and chorus and verse and all that stuff for a song. Effortless. And people tell me, well, doesn't it have to be effortful if you're going to make music? No. It can be effortless. It does not have to be a struggle. The universe has only one answer to everything. What do you think that answer is? Yes. So if that's true, why do so many people say no? If somebody walked up to me right now and said, Dennis, I got a free pass to go to the moon in the rocket. Will you come? You want to bet I'll say no? What is that no? It's fear. That's the no. It's fear. It's like that with everything in our life. People give us opportunities to grow, and we say, no, I can't do that. I won't do that. You know, God's Spirit does not play favorites. That which we give law to work with, especially when we add the power of imagination, passion, enthusiasm, and energy, will demonstrate in response. That is exactly almost a quote from Abraham Hicks. Ask and it is given. Ask and it is given. But be careful what you're asking for. All right? If you're asking for something like, I want to be a performer on the stage, you better be prepared to actually practice, get yourself ready to sit on the stage and not be terrified of the people you're singing to. All right? Certainly not be thinking about them the whole time you're singing, whether they think you're good or you suck. So you may have noticed it's much easier to say no than it is to say yes. No is actually unnatural. It's a response that automatically gets generated by the roadblocks you have experienced in life. What can you do about that? Well, you can break the roadblocks. You can confront each one and say, well, I always say no to that, but maybe I'll say yes this time and see what shows up. Go to God first. This is the conclusion of my talk. Go to God first. Spiritual practice. Ask what Spirit wants to create by means of you. In other words, rather than seeing yourself as I'm sitting down and I'm, in my case, I'm creating music that's my music. It isn't like that at all. If that were the case, then I could tell you how it was going to turn out before it turns out. But I can't, honestly. Sometimes it turns out, bleh. Sometimes it turns out remarkable, and I don't want to take any credit for that, because I'm allowing Source to come through me and give me the ideas that I want to make it work. That's it. So choose an area of your life that is calling for change or even a minor shift. Write down what you want in the present tense as if you have it already now. Okay? Be imaginative. How do you want to be and feel? So I can state right now, I would love to play with Henry Capono. I never have. I would love to perform with Henry Capono. I can see it as being wonderful and that he acknowledges me as a superior musician and that I'm his equal. Because you know what? I honestly feel like I'm his equal. I don't feel inferior. It's just that he's famous and I'm not. All right? So, I'm pretty much done with this talk. I hope that you take something other than humor out of it and apply it to your life and begin asking for what you want and saying yes to the yes. And so it is.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dennis, so much. I think I saw a course, Busting the Blocks, coming out. I think there is a little creativity that comes out, and guess what? I wouldn't even have to do it because I know somebody that's already created that curriculum. Woohoo! Ah, thank you so much. And, you know, so this is the wonderful thing about East Hawaii Center for Spiritual Living. We get to have speakers like Dennis here. We get to hear these messages, and we get to be together in this wonderful place, this space, this beauty. But we don't get to do it without your help. So this is our time for conscious giving. It's a time when we give and receive, and with so much gratitude, here we say thank you. Thank you for your support, all of your donations. They travel through us and back out into the world, because that's what we want to do here. Nothing stops here. We are in the flow of circulation, and we invite you into that place too. So there are many different ways that we let you give. Do you like that one? We encourage, we love. And these are all the different ways. We have donate buttons on our website, in our newsletter. We love getting checks in the mail. You know, I've got the key to the mailbox. It's so much fun. I just go on down, I'm like, woo, 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 and I pop back up again. So it's delightful to receive this from everybody. And I will tell you that there is a vibration that comes through. And I also want to add just one more thing before we go into our affirmation. Last month in February, well, not last month, the month before in February at our annual meeting, I proposed a look-forward budget or a potential income for this year of $100,000 for this community, and everybody looked at me as if I was insane. They were like, are you kidding? And you know what I said? I said at that time, if you're one of those wonderful conscious givers that drops a 20 in our bowl right over there, I said, why don't you just add a cup of coffee to that? Because $24 a Sunday will have us achieve this goal. And we get to take it out into the world. This is what we're doing. Our outreach programs are in action already. So I want to thank you, because guess what? The first quarter is complete, and we have reached our goal. So thank you. It is brilliant to stand up here and say it, because I know we are going to be able to walk out all of the desires and intentions that we've set at a community. So please, at this point, take your conscious giving in your hand. If you don't have it personally, just hold it close to your heart, know it, and please repeat this affirmation after me. This gift I give is God in action. I give it in love. I give it in joy. I give it in gratitude. I give it knowing that it is given again. So I graciously give. And so it is. Thank you, thank you. And please, let's welcome back our beautiful voices.